affected with COVID and our men and women in the armed forces. Thank you. Before I start the agenda, going to turn the meeting over to Brian Howard.
That's a good start. I went around asking people if they had seen our meetings the past couple of weeks. And then I also received, while I'm walking on the sidewalk, or I'm at the center, people coming up and talking about some of the meetings, the solution and things of that nature. So I thought that I would chart some of these statements that were made. I understand fully that this is a very, very sensitive issue to a lot of people in the village and in the town. I also understand that we don't have all the answers, but we will be having people who come in and talk. Other people are telling me they're going to be calling up the state and see if they can have a town hall meeting. The more information that we receive, I think, we can make an intelligent choice. But what was most disturbing was that some of the remarks, it appears that certain trustees do not get along, and why is the name calling? This has no place at a meeting. People are yelling from the audience. At times when residents were asking a question, they were cut off and interrupted by other people. Other times when people were trying to speak, people up here and in the audience were having separate conversations. Not everyone in the audience agrees on certain items that are brought up, nor do we trustees agree on certain items. But I think that we can have respect and a thing called civility for each other. You don't have to agree with me, that's fine. And I don't have to agree with you. But you can bet that I will be listening. And you can bet I'm not going to be making you feel bad or anything else like that. That's what we need to start doing. Residents are concerned about the opinions of people watching at home or from another place besides the village or the town. What are they thinking about the residents? What does the solution really mean? What about the village board? Some of the words that we use, it looks like a zoo. It's very disrespectful. People from the village and the board ought to know better by now. Not the impression I want outsiders to have of our village or our residents. The solution is very sensitive. Residents of the village and the town have lots of questions. I understand that. But there's ways of asking questions, and certainly there's ways of us answering your questions. It wasn't long ago that people and families weren't even talking to one another during the last presidential election. People didn't eat together, people didn't talk together, friends didn't see each other. I hope that doesn't happen here. And being an outsider, not from here, but many of the people said, you know, we've had a tight community here. We don't want that either. Well, if we don't want that, then I guess we really need to take a look at how we treat each other. People ought to think about what they put on Facebook. Name calling will only separate us. As a community, the same sentiment with certain letters mailed to our local newspaper. I'm suggesting, as a trustee and a resident, that we make a concerted effort to respect each other's views. Treat people with respect and dignity, and that we develop a community no matter what people's views are. We all live here, let us all function as a community. Those were the comments that was said to me over the past 2 weeks. I'm not berating anybody, not blaming anyone, but I hope that we take this to heart and we start treating people as we should. Thank you.
Okay, first on the agenda is public comment on agenda items. Yes.
I see you have cell towers down. If
Have cell antennas, not towers.
The ones going over the village hall, right? Is that what they are? The little ones we were talking about that are going on? Right, if we have that, 911 shouldn't be a problem, is that correct?
I don't know. I can't answer that. That's,
But will it,
we can find
but
out.
it's supposed to improve cell service.
Yeah, I hope it does. It's supposed to, and it will. I don't hope it does, it will.
With improve, well, we've been waiting for something here for a very long
Yeah.
time. It's 2021, and service is horrible in this village. And that might answer problems for 911. I
Thank you.
understand that is part of the issue. And the other question, when we were talking cell towers, we were gonna get so much a month. Village was gonna get so much a month. Does that happen with these?
You're jumping ahead a little bit, but they're great questions and they're going to be answered tonight. Any other questions? Any other comments on agenda items? Okay. Yeah.
Frank Lillis, the Halifax Police Department. I don't see it on the agenda, but last week when they approved the contract, we took great compromise and only took a 2% raise. Part of that contract was, I was understanding from our PDA president, that all our grievances were going to be settled. Because we know we have an open grievance with my son on his time that when he came back to the department. I still don't see it on the agenda. I'm just wondering if that's going to be voted on tonight. I understand there's an agreement. I'm just wondering why it hasn't come up yet.
Just let me respectfully correct a couple things. It'll be on the agenda Monday coming, a week from today. Number two, there is no agreement unless we get one between now and Monday. I received an email less than an hour ago from the village's labor attorney. So that's all I know. I received that an hour ago. So it's too, I could not be on the agenda for tonight. Unless we want to take care of part of it. That's up to the board. That's up to the board later on in the agenda.
Okay, I appreciate that. And just want to just comment on Mr. Alward's comments there. I agree 100%. I was born and raised in this village here, third generation, and I agree. Some of the nonsense that goes on, name calling and other things, is really ridiculous. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, but I still say we need to stay together as a community. So I appreciate all those comments.
Every mayor and supervisor that I have spoken to over the last 5 weeks, everyone, without me asking the question, because it really wasn't why I called each one, everyone said it tore their communities apart. That's the words they used. So let's be different. Let's not let it tear us apart. They were very adamant about it, what had happened in their communities. And that's sad. I'd like to introduce Clint. Clint is a gentleman that we brought on 2 years, less than 2,
About a year and a half.
a year and a half ago, to help me handle, along with our village attorney, these cell antennas. We started out with a proposal for a cell tower. There was a committee. I think, Martha, were you on that committee? I think Brian was, and some other folks. But it quickly became apparent that putting a cell tower up in the village of Holland Falls, which is so compact, wherever the few places, and only a few places where the cell antenna, the cell tower could go, was always around neighborhoods, which that's what you have. That's the nature of where we live. And so through negotiations with Verizon and Elise, again, the village attorney and Clint, we've had more meetings than I can remember, than I can count. And we've come up, we'll bring you up to date as far as today. We know that, and Clint will tell us all, Verizon is interested. Can I say Dish?
Dish is just in the preliminary, they
Okay.
just did a sidewalk, and that's all.
Okay, but that's how even Verizon started. So there's interest out here, but for sure Verizon. And yes, it will, according to Verizon, tremendously increase the reception area.
I have one just quick question.
On the agenda?
On the agenda, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
And it was about the concrete curb repair.
Yeah.
It's not noted where the location of that is.
Murns Avenue.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we have, well, good evening. My name is Clint Smith, my name is Clint Smith, and as the mayor indicated, I was brought in because of my experience with for wireless communications. Just a brief history of my background. I've got well over 30 years in the wireless industry, and worked for NYNEX. I was director of engineering for NYNEX and also planning director for AT&T for the Northeast. Got 9 books with McGraw-Hill for wireless engineering. I got over 170 patents in wireless, and this is some of the stuff that I do. Beside, and I'm currently the CTO for an edge computing company. But right now, as part of the quest, the village got in touch with me, primarily the mayor, with the lease, to investigate or basically discuss with regards to a proposal from Homeland Tower, which was a company that was proposing a tower be built into the village. Now, within a short period of time of talking to them and seeing the proposal, and we have Verizon also here, it became apparent that their location may not be as best. Verizon wasn't even happy with it. So, with discussions with Verizon that actually occurred at the village hall, it was decided that maybe a couple sites could be used to improve it and also keep the aesthetics as best as possible. So we kept lower sites and made things a lot better and improved the actual performance of the entire area. As part of it, the senior center was one of the locations that was identified because we were trying to get one of the mission statements was to get the wireless siting to take place on village property. So the village could actually experience some revenue from this at the same time. It doesn't have to be, it just, if it matched what Verizon can do, they're not going to build something that's not going to match, what their needs are. That just wouldn't make any sense. But we seem to have found a common ground at that moment. Village Hall was used as one part, and they proposed a very small tower that's around the same height as what the current police tower is, that's going to be installed at Village Hall. And it's in the back end of the building. And that's to cover that part of the village. To cover this section of the village, they're going to put a 50-foot hole that's going to be in the parking lot right over here at the senior center. And it's going to take up 1 parking space. And that is really, between the 2 sites, they figured that would meet most of the requirements for the village. That would do a very good job. They'd improve it. That's really what the mission statement was, to see how can we improve this, basically cellular service within the village. Now, as the mayor indicated, we've had quite a few meetings on this. This is not something that just took place, over a period of just, like 1 month. This has been going on, and there's been quite a few site visits. We've back and forth, especially both also the village hall and also this location where we can put the actual equipment, where we can put, and there was active debates about where we can put it back and forth, which was very encouraging. It was all handled very, I'd say very, everybody was working together pretty well because we were trying to get a, common mission statement. And, one of the interesting things, for the village hall, it's in a prime spot. It's going to cover a large section, and likely they would not be, they would be pretty well somewhat, not that prevalent spot. Here, it's going to be a single, basically a single antenna, or rather a single sector antenna site that's going to be at, in the one parking, 50-foot pole that's going to be here. And, and the reason for the small height is that they figured between the two sites, this would provide the coverage that they needed versus trying to get for a very large tower. That was the discussion we had, and it took place. A couple of the trustees were there for that one meeting that took place when we had an active debate about what to do, and when we were discussing what possible locations to go for. But overall, it seems to be a pretty good, pretty good solution. And the primary piece is that we've got the initial lease done as such, or rather the exhibits, and it's, I guess really, without babbling on too much, it's not bad. It looks like it's a pretty good solution. But I think there's going to be questions that are going to come up from this.
Tonight,
Go ahead.
tonight,
Yeah.
if there's any, I'll let them, they can be given them.
What's the difference between a tower and an antenna for, as far as service?
Well, it's kind of, that's, they're kind of one and the same in terms of talking about service. The difference is the towers typically, you'll see, the towers would attach the antennas to. We can attach an antenna to the side of the building. The antenna is what's actually being used to deliver the service. Okay. The tower is just a mounting facility that you have. What's typically used in the industry, or what's being referenced is when they say, a cell site or cell tower. It could be a building that's being used. They'll say it's a cell site. It doesn't mean that there's an actual physical tower, but it's nomenclature. It's basically jargon that's used more than anything else. But the simple answer is, tower will be, you'd see it would be a physical structure, and on the physical structure, there would be antennas located on it, and the antennas are the part that actually deliver the service to you. But the antennas don't have to be in a tower. They can actually be mounted on the side of the building, back from the parapet. They can be put on a 50-foot utility pole, as right here. So it all depends. You can be very creative with this, and I think that's what Verizon is doing. Is instead of doing the standard, we'll just build put a tower here and put the antennas on it. He said, no, let's go back and let's somewhat be creative in terms of what we can do for to provide service here.
Just two quick questions. So, or is it, I know you mentioned Verizon, but if people have other cell services, will they be able to attach antennas on it also? And maybe when would this come in?
The simple answer is that is somewhat the objective behind everything, is to allow other people to co-locate, other carriers to co-locate on the same facility. That was from the mission statement from the beginning. You're trying to get as many people to co-locate.
The answer is yes. The more we can have up there, the better it is for reception, and the village can make a little money.
Okay. And when do they think they may do it? Any idea when they start to get it in place?
Verizon's looking at, if you're talking about Verizon, their hope is to have the system on by the first quarter of next year. That's what their objective is. Now, the other carriers, there's only a few carriers out there that are the wireless carriers through all the consolidation. You got Dish, T-Mobile, and AT&T. And with that, we've had some queries, and we had a site visit with Dish, but that's a long way away from being it's more or less they opened the door to a look, so they liked what they saw, and we haven't heard back from them yet, but it hasn't been that long. It's the beginning of the
Dish very, very much liked what they saw at Village Hall. Mr. Green?
Just a quick question. These towers, will they eliminate most of the dead zones within the village?
Well, that's what the desire is. You can't guarantee you'll remove every single dead zone, but the simple quest is to try to remove as many of them. Their objective is to create, is to remove the dead zones. But you can't, in the basement or single possible dead zone is going to be remote.
I'm just thinking of, in front of the Highland Falls Fire Department, there is a terrible dead zone, you cannot get reception there. That-
Mr. Green, if you come by the village hall this week, I have a graph by Verizon. It's a colored graph. It's two pieces of paper. And it has the map of the village. And it has colors of green and red and yellow. Green is what you want. Very little green.
Perfect.
Then the one that they say it should be, with their research that they did, can I say research or?
Yeah, the computer model.
Computer model, the whole village is, 98% of the village is green.
It works for me.
So this could help what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Yes,
Just as asked, what is the reach or the perimeter of the cell towers? And second thing is, like, let people know, is there any immediate RF dangers within proximity of the tower? Is there any issues with that people should know or not, know that there's no problem?
You had two questions there. The first is the range of the site. Effectively, it's a height issue. The taller the antenna gets off the ground, the longer the range. You can get 15 miles out of it, but we're not going to get 15 miles here. Because, just the physical terrain, with the mountain on the one side and just on the top of the building where we're installing, basically it's a mile, or, at some points, some other points it'll be like a quarter mile. It's not, it's a terrain issue more than anything else. And that's why there hasn't been that great of service anyway for here for a long time, is because of the terrain issue. And the only way they're going to solve it is putting the actual physical site here and try to solve it that way. But the best way to do is, which I don't have right now with me, but we will later, is that there's a propagation map that the mayor was indicating. That's really what the term is. That shows what the actual physical coverage is anticipated to be for the site. And, that's a telling piece that actually says this is what it's going to really do. They do a computer simulation. I'm not a Verizon employee, so I'm not trying to, basically give them a rah on it. But they do a computer simulation just to make sure that the investment that they're going to do for the area when they put the site is going to at least meet most of the requirements. Nothing ever meets 100%, but they're trying to get most of it. The map that the mayor, that's in the mayor's office, really gives you the best picture. On the other, you had the second question about referred to EMF, radiation. With that, there's guidelines to follow for that. Specifically, there's a FCC rule that you would have to follow, and with everything, everything will be in compliance. So the simple answer is that there's going to be it's not going to have any health impact. We're going to follow the rules, and it's pretty straightforward. Verizon has to issue a report anyway for every site that they build, either one here or at the village hall, and they have to show the calculations what they use for electromagnetic. They call it radiation, but realistically, it's not ionizing radiation that you typically refer to. You think about like for X-rays. This is just radio emissions that, and we have to basically they have to show the calculations to show it meets within there's a national guideline for the FCC to follow.
Thank you.
anyone else? Jim?
Yeah, so is there any cost to the village residents before they put that up?
There's no cost to the village residents as far as engineering, or not engineering, well, it could be engineering, but illegal and with Clint. We have an escrow, as we normally do, in place where Verizon,
Will reimburse us?
they have to give us, we have their money.
Okay.
We deplete it, then it has to be replenished.
Fantastic. I thought we talked about that back in the day too, so that's great. I was glad to hear that. The other question is, so the tower over here that they're going to put supposedly, or the monopole maybe, right? Possibly. Will we address the pavement out here before they come in and do their work? It's just a question. In other words, I'd hate for them to come in and, you know, tear everything up if we're gonna do the pavement first or after. It's a question for the board to ponder, that's all. Thanks.
Got it.
Thank you.
Got it. Good question.
You want me to answer the question about money?
Sure.
Okay, so the difference between the Homeland Tower, which was something like 120, 140 feet tall, and this facility is the tower can cope, first of all, it's not built by Verizon, it's built by Homeland Towers. They build towers, and then they market those towers to Verizon, AT&T, all of those guys. So they provide a land lease, and they also provide a small percentage of the money that they can bring in as they lease these out to other carriers. There has to be a certain amount of space between like a Verizon antenna and AT&T antenna, etc. So the taller the tower, the more they can lease it out, the more money they can bring in. And then there's a capped amount of percentage after, and it's, you know, percentage of net revenue, which by the time you get everything taken out of it, you know, is not small money, but you never really know how much it is. The problem with the Homeland Tower, originally they wanted to put it at the wastewater treatment plant, correct? And it would take up too much space. So the village, after they looked at that, decided that that space was needed for any kind of expansion or parking or just use by the village. So the village board determined they couldn't really lease that out to Homeland Towers. That's when Verizon came in. They were going to lease part of the tower. They were thinking about, well, Homeland will build this and we'll just put an antenna on it. So when that kind of fell through, because the other areas in the village, Homeland wasn't interested. And also, they had a proposal some time ago, I forget how many years ago, where they would have been very close to a lot of residents. So that was a problem as well. So Verizon then came to the board directly through Clint and said, well, maybe there's another way to do it. Now the Verizon lease will provide monies, and it's been negotiated, and the board will have to look at the documents and decide whether or not there's something else that they want. But we did go back and forth quite a bit. We got more money for the ground leases. We also got a signing bonus, which is very unusual. And a little bit of the way the 2% escalation every year is slightly different, and I think to the benefit of the village. But because those facilities are not 150 or 20-foot towers, it's my understanding that they're not actually going to be leasing those out to other carriers to the extent that they can then provide a percentage of that revenue to the village.
That's correct, but we can get other carriers to install onto the village hall's roof.
We don't need Verizon's antennas to facilitate 18, whatever the other ones are. The village hall is large, as you know. There's a lot of room upstairs.
That was my comment about the whole, I'm sure that we were looking at the physical space on the roof. And it's leases, comment for here. The village gets 100% of the revenue take. It's not a revenue share. We get the whole piece that the village does. And with regards to that, any other carrier that comes on, then the village gets the whole piece of it. It's not a percentage. So the village, and the fact that Verizon's going to be on the roof, there's going to be other interests for competition for somebody trying to provide coverage. It'll be a good thing.
So right now where we are is, we've been back and forth with the lease, and you've been provided with all my marked up copies and for your review. Todd, the engineer, has been involved in this, so he's been looking at specifically well as the easements and where everything's gonna be out here. I'm going back and forth with Verizon a little bit because, and with Todd, we're a bit concerned. We want to make sure seeker is properly done. And I am providing the county with a referral. So that's a roundabout way of saying, even if you thought the lease was great and you're ready to deny it, we're not going to grant that. So it might be another meeting, depending on how you guys come back after you get the lease. And if you have any more questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have one other quick question, please. Should Verizon 10, 20 years from now back out, is there something that we could put in our contract with them that they would be responsible to remove the tower?
Well, there is restoration language
Okay.
in
There
the
is.
contract.
Fantastic, thank you.
And I don't know who was on the board at the time, but there was a really serious incident. One of the prior trustees who had a medical emergency in Village Hall upstairs, and there's no cell service. So it was pretty scary, you know. Right, Brian?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Go back to Warwick before you start. Thank you, and as always, we'll be talking, and it's been a lot of work, it's been a lot of meetings, a lot of everything. I want to thank John and Tim and John Walter over here, because every time Verizon came, or even Dish, we had to get them up on the roof. It's not easy getting up on the roof. So, thank you, everyone. It's a lot of work, but it'll pay off in many different ways. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Clint, we'll be talking. All right, thank you, sir.
Cheers.
All right, next we, on the agenda is to approve minutes as written. We can have a motion to approve the minutes. They were dated July 19th, 2021. Motion?
Second.
Brian, second by Gary, all in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda is a request for vacation buyback. You have the letter before you from Sergeant Gruber. He has 52 days, he's asking to be paid for 27 of those 52. I would encourage the board to go with past practice where we have paid up to 10. Discussion, motion.
Make a motion for the past practice that we have done 10 days for vacation.
Motion by trustee DeSalvo, is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Howard. All in favor?
Yes. Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have a proposal for tree removal. It's at 65 West Street. Went there a couple times with my highway guys. It's the biggest dead tree I've ever seen. It's massive. And we asked for a survey. This came from the property owner. As we always do, we asked for a survey. Had the engineer, Todd, up there with us. And it's clearly ours, as much as I wish it wasn't. And so you have before you 3 bids. And it is dead. Every branch, every twig on it. Low bid of $2,450. A high bid of $4,800. We have three vendors.
Do any local people ask that you drive for your tenants?
Yes,
I want
but
to say yes.
it's, we ask them, give us a price, they don't, it's not, Well, we've asked them a few times, and they don't, oh, yeah, I'll take a look at it, I'll give you a look at it. It's like pulling teeth, it's get that and give us a price.
Yeah. Okay, so if you want to accept the low bid, which they have been checked out, a motion would be worth it.
And Joe,
Yeah.
when we were up there looking at that day, and like I said, it was probably about 6-8 feet from the property that was on our property. But we also talked about the tree to the right of that.
He's gonna do that.
So it's both of them trees?
Both of them.
Oh, okay, and they're both on our
It's a
property?
very, the other one's very small.
Yeah, but it's one that when we were up there talking about that day, right?
That's both.
Yeah, so, okay.
Okay.
Just with the difference in prices, I mean, 4,800 to 2,400, I mean, you can do it.
Tree man,
South Wick.
that guy, tree man.
I've heard of the name, so that's,
He's the one we get all the time.
And they do a good job of cleaning up and everything, and he's gonna cut right to that stump right where we're talking about, so.
It's in the rock, so it's gonna keep.
Yeah, so that's gonna keep it without tearing up the foundation, so he's gonna keep that certain amount of that height of it.
Okay,
I
motion
make a motion.
that we accept New York Tree
Yes.
for $2,450. The motion should read, a motion by trustee Phillips, is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Howard, all in favor?
I'll second,
Wait.
just include that it was the low bid in the motion, please.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay, curb cut. So, you know, we've talked about the wall, and the folks up on Burns Avenue are very, very happy. Did come out very nice. Todd, a brief overview of your asking, which I agree, and I think they all want you to give your explanation on why we should put a curb up on Burns.
So it's actually listed as 48 row, but it's on Burns Avenue, it's the backside of the property. We replaced about average of 12 foot high by 75 foot long stone retaining wall to ensure that Burns Avenue stayed where it's at. Right now, after looking at this and discussing with the contractor, I think it'd be a very good idea for the village to move forward with installing a new concrete curb that goes the length of that wall, and it actually goes further to the south and to the north to incorporate other areas of wall that now might be let's say, it's not deteriorated, but it's at a disadvantage based on the new construction that's there. So what we're proposing, A-Tech Concrete, I think has Mayor, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's 265 foot long worth of new concrete curb that will go from the existing curb line that's to the north of the wall.
It's almost up by Dr. Gerber.
Yeah, it is,
South.
correct.
South past the wall we just did.
Yep.
To the storm drain.
To the storm drain, yes, correct. So replace the actual concrete curb that's deteriorated over time, and it's actually what created the issues with the existing wall that's been replaced. So I think the cost is
$11,925.
That is correct, and then we have that money there left over within one of the grants for sidewalks, so we're proposing to use that money to move forward to ensure that section of wall that we just replaced, as well as another 180 or 190 linear feet of wall, is not compromised here with the upcoming potential storm and everything else that's December.
Jim?
So north and south, east and west, so when I'm going up there, you know, Burns left or right, so I'm going to the left,
Going up Berry Hill, make a left.
Yeah.
That's going south.
okay, so,
So you get to Gurgley's house.
yeah, I got it.
And
But
just-
that whole section, that whole area is eventually,
That is correct.
now, are we throwing money away here, or is this,
We could wait to have that done as part of the Burns Avenue work, but you could lose more walls in that time being, in that waiting.
okay, I'm okay, but if we put this in, can we save it?
Yes, this
Or
will
would
be
we do
saved.
the whole road?
This portion will be
Okay,
saved.
that's what I need to hear.
Jim, that's a great question. That is the answer, as I know it also. And Department of Transportation, New York, is giving us such a hard time about our money. It's terrible. But we will get that money that was given to us a long time ago, and to do Burns Avenue. But that's a good question, and we can save it. Okay. So can I have a motion that we do this curbing of option 2? There's option 1 in front of you and option 2. It's option 2 we just spoke about. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to go to option 2 for 265 linear feet of concrete curb installed on Burns Avenue from A-Tech Concrete Company.
Is there a second?
Second.
You have it, Anna? Thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Next, we have a request to use Roe Park on Saturday, August the 7th. The name of the event is Area of Operations Meet and Greet. It's a not-for-profit based out of West Point. Has nothing to do with West Point per se. Host meet and greet fundraiser event where supporters of our organization's mission can meet the board of directors and staff members. Food and water will be available for guests and a small donation to the organization. On Saturday, August the 7th, rain date the August the 8th. It's from noon to 6 p.m. And these folks here raise money through donations. It's a not-for-profit 501c3. And they take the money and turn it around and donate it to vets, active duty personnel, military personnel, and law and first responders. They donate to trips. Someone likes to go fly fishing. They'll pay for the entire fly fishing weekend or whatever however long they out to Colorado. Just a host of things that vets and active duty personnel maybe couldn't afford on their own. Again, also law and first responders. That's where the money goes. So that's the request, and it's up to the board to approve or not.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
It sounds like a great cost, and shouldn't be any problem, except did we run it by our recreation director?
Yes, we did.
Oh, and
Thank
he's
you.
okay with it?
Thank you. And so, Jim, what did he mention to you?
I had gotten a text from him, from Mr. Falk, and he had thought that there may have been a conflict, so I had said to him that I would mention it tonight, because at first, he may have thought it was already approved, and I thought we didn't approve it. I know we had talked about it. But, you know, if there is a conflict with something the town is running, then that would be an issue. So I guess it would be, if we could check it through Village Hall, with the rec and the town again, and, you know, I'm okay with it as long as there's not a conflict.
So tomorrow morning, we'll communicate with the Recreation Department and see if there's a conflict for Saturday, August, which is this Saturday, August the 7th. So if the motion is to allow this group to use Roe Park for the purpose they're stating, pending confirmation that there is nothing going on from recreation, that would be the motion.
That would be my motion.
Is there a second?
Second that.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Village clerk is requesting that we surplus 2 Windows 7 computer systems. They're over 10 years old. They've been replaced. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
If we could have the motion, I see she wrote a motion here. Motion to surplus 2 Village Hall Dell desktop computers, Windows 7 operating systems with monitor, keyboard, and mouses that are over 10 years old. So So would you make that change?
So moved.
So moved, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Gary, all in favor?
Yes.
Opposed, motion carried.
You know how much you get for those.
Okay, let's go back to Officer Lillis Jr. and what we could do tonight, if the board chooses, is to bring him to step 2. He's at step 1, bring him to step 2 tonight. And then this week, talk about the rest of his requests. And the PBA's recommendation on how we handle this, which again, I had just gotten. So, but I do think it's only right, just only half of it, if I can say it that way, that he go to 2.
Yep, thank you.
All right?
We can agree to that.
So can we have a motion that we bring Frank Lillis Jr. Starting tonight, when do you work next?
Tonight.
Tonight? What, at 11?
Yeah.
Am I all right, at least saying today's shift, 11 o'clock tonight, that he moves up to step 2?
If the board moves forward with this, then I don't see any prohibition against setting the date.
Okay. So if I can have a motion to bring Frank Lillis Jr. from step 1 to step 2, effective August 2, 2021, that would start the process.
I'll make a motion.
Motion
Well,
by
step 2.
I'll second it.
roll call.
Trustee Guerrero?
Yes.
Trustee Elwer?
Yes.
Trustee DeSalvo?
Yes.
Trustee Phillips?
Yes.
Mayor D'Onofrio?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. And thank you, Anna, for being here tonight. Gina's on vacation, and I know you look forward to these couple times a year to do this. I know. I have bills and claims for fiscal year.
Do you need to set the special meeting for August 9th?
Oh, there it is. I have too much scribble on my. I want to set a special meeting for a week from today, August the 9th, next Monday, 2021, 6 p.m., Village Hall. Purpose to set referendum date for village dissolution.
Vote for the referendum.
So, yeah, to set the date of the vote. It will be on August the 9th. We'll have the meeting on August the 9th, 2021 at 6 p.m. On the agenda will be to set the vote, the date for the vote.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I will. No, I need roll call. I only had 2 yeses.
Trustee
They don't have to
Guerrero?
say yes or no.
Trustee Elwer?
Yes.
Trustee DeSalvo?
Yes.
Trustee Phillips?
Yes.
Mayor D'Onofrio?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you so much. Brian reminded me, although I had it here to do, so next Monday, this meeting at 6 p.m. at the Village Hall, I want those to know that if you can't make it up the steps for whatever different reasons, that the conference room in Village Hall will be open. You can sit there at the table, you can watch the big screen, the meeting that's going on right above you, and then when it comes time for questions, there's a phone there, and you'll dial, and the phone will ring upstairs, and the clerk will put you on speaker, and you can ask your question. So that'll help with that issue. I have bills and claims for fiscal year 2022 of $254,162.62.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills and claims for FY 21-22.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Some of you may remember Dante. Remember Dante? He was a character in a very, very good way. This side of the room doesn't know who Dante is, because they're new here, but this side does know. Today, he turned 102. No, excuse me, August 2nd, he turns 100 today. He's in Castle Point. World War II vet.
What do you say about his sister?
He said his parents had 14 children. He said my sister lived to be 104. So there's good genes there. I wish he was here. But he's still with us and he's in Castle Point.
Fantastic.
Always had great stories. Pins on his jacket all the time.
And he had trinkets and they were
Yes,
all
all
color
trinkets.
coded.
That's right, yes.
He had black and white, he had blue, he had red, from the hat to his shoes. He was cool.
Everybody's taking pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was an artist also. I have one of his paintings. Okay, I don't have much virus numbers back to that because you all, if you watch a little bit of news, you'll see it's all going back up. But I was on a conference call the other day with the county executive. 50 new cases almost every day. The average age is 23. If you have a child 12 years and older, and this number I'll leave with Anna at the Village Hall, you can call the Village Hall or you can stop in. If you can't take it down tonight, I'm really speaking to those that are hopefully going to watch this tomorrow, because we're not live right now. But if you have a 12-year-old child or older, if you call 291-2330, you'll be directed to go to either Middletown or Newburgh with your child for the shot. We all know that folks that have been vaccinated are getting infected. They gave a handful of communities that have a low vaccination rate. They only talked about those. Fort Montgomery is one. They're at 41.5. I don't know what number would take them out of that, what they call low, maybe over 50. I don't know. That question wasn't asked or said. But Fort Montgomery is low at 41.5. We are going to apply again. The state has offered the DRI grant for $10 million. So we're going to go after that $10 million for Main Street. We do have our Roe Park grant in. And sales tax. In 2019, for June, our June payment, 2019, which was before COVID, $305,000 for a quarter, the June payment. We get 4 payments a year. 2020 June payment, in the middle of the pandemic, that 305 went to 218. That's understandable, I guess. The good news is 2021 June, again, we were at 305, 218. We received a check for $367,618. So that's $149,000 more than last year for the June payment. That's all. Does any board member have anything?
I do. We wanted to talk about resolutions, and the last board meeting, there were just a couple of things, a couple of resolutions at least that were passed, and I wasn't aware of it beforehand. And they were like surprise resolutions to me. So in the past week, private citizens, actually, and concerned citizens have written a letter to the board talking about one resolution in particular that was for $27,500 to hire the LaBerge Group for an interim dissolution study. And it was improperly done and illegally done, And if we had gotten the resolution ahead of time, at least if I did, I probably would have questioned it a bit more. In any event, the resolution was passed, and it did prompt other private citizens to actually call the Department of State and ask about grants that are available, so that we don't have to carry the burden of $27,500 for an interim dissolution study. I'm in agreement with that. I think we should have an interim dissolution study, but grants are available. It's going to be opening up. It wasn't because of COVID, but an expedited grant application is actually available to us. And it's a 90 to 10 split. So they're going to pay most of it if we just apply for the grant. So I would like to make a motion that perhaps we could draft up a resolution to apply for the grant.
It's not, we can't do that, and so you know, my notes here, you could read, Labarge will be applying for a CREG grant to cover the initial study. That grant covers 90% of the cost. I'm already talking to them. When the application comes out, there'll be he said to me there would be a fast track on those that are already in the process. We will take advantage of that, and I'm sure that we'll be a recipient of this grant.
That would be
So that's
great.
where we're at.
Yeah, it's saving taxpayer money instead of $27,500 out of the general fund. So it's helpful to us. The other resolution that was passed was up to $125,000 to be appropriated from the village fund for education of the public regarding dissolution. I just want to remind the board that advocacy for dissolution or against dissolution is not permissible using public funds. You cannot use village money, taxpayers' money, to campaign for or against dissolution. So that money is sacred. It's sacred because it's taxpayer money and it's public money, and it would be misusing it to actually use it for anything but. There's a public officers law, section 103, so that there's no surprise resolutions, and so that we can have all the information in front of us before the meeting. I'm asking Elise, can we implement that policy? Or
Policy implementation is up to the Board of Trustees, so if the Board of Trustees wishes to implement policies for good governance, that's completely within their purview.
well, I can make a motion. I can make a motion that we implement this requirement. And
I think that the board would want to have a little more information about 103 and what specific policy are they looking to implement?
Yes.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about it?
No, I cannot, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
But I'm sure you do if you wish to go ahead and elucidate to the board.
Okay, I do. Hang on. Actually, it just says, Public Officers Law, Section 103, specifically says that any proposed resolution, law, rule, regulation, policy, or any amendment thereto that's scheduled to be the subject of discussion by a public body during an open meeting shall be made available to the public to the extent practicable as determined by the agency or the department prior to the meeting during which the records will be discussed. If the agency in which the public body functions maintains a regularly and routinely updated website and utilizes a high-speed internet connection, such records shall be posted on the website to the extent practicable as determined by the agency or the department prior to the meeting. So that's all it's saying, is that, if we have a resolution that we want to pass, it should be available to us well before the meeting. And that if it's not, that we shouldn't. We have the right to not act on the resolution.
Based on the language of 103 that I just heard, I still think it is up to this board to decide under what circumstances they make information available prior to a public meeting and whether or not to post it, etc. So I think that's a good discussion to have. And you might ask this board to consider it. But to draft a policy while we're sitting here, I think is not the way to go here.
I wouldn't be asking to draft the policy. The policy is already a public law. It would just be a motion to implement the policy.
Well, it's not a policy, it's the public officer's law. And that is in the language that I heard as I hear it. And I can certainly do more research if the board wants me to. It sounds to me like the actual policy of when information is made available, depending on when it's made available to the board and all the preceding steps, is something that this board should consider, like any other policy that they implement.
It's a simple request. Resolution should not be a surprise, and then acted on the day of the meeting. It's a simple request. Give it to us a day in advance so that we can review it, but I understand if that's not what the board wants, and that's not what the village attorney is advising, then I would go with what the board wants and the village attorney wants. I just needed to hear what they had to say.
I would just respectfully say that I am not advising this board to do anything that is not lawful.
Okay, we'll take this matter up as ask questions, Google it, call the New York Conference of Mayors, call the Department of State, whatever you want to do, and we'll take it up.
I think it's a good idea to have the materials before you take a vote.
It's really very simple.
Well, when you look at this, when you look at the agenda tonight, I mean, are we talking about resolutions or are we talking about any item?
Resolutions.
Well, there's no resolutions on tonight.
Well, no, it's not about tonight.
I know it's not about tonight, I wanted to see. Okay, so we'll take this up, it's a good thing to talk about. Huh? Okay, anything further from the board?
Oh, one more thing, since we were with the resolution. Like Frank, that MOA, that new MOA with 2% increase, I voted against it because I hadn't read it. That's all. It was a surprise to me. But it actually is fantastic. It's a significant change from the initial MOA that was presented to the board before I was even a trustee. A significant change. And I will tell you, I don't think that would have happened if the citizens didn't speak up and say that's, we don't accept that MOA. And the Highlands PBA responded with a much better one. So,
Thank you. Anything further from anyone? Yes.
Hi, just to, Orange County Legislator Lori Tontel, just to touch a little bit on what you had mentioned earlier in regards to the increase in COVID. As of today, the CDC is recommending everyone, even those who are vaccinated, to wear masks indoors again for counties with a substantial or high COVID transmission rating. Orange County has been labeled as having a substantial increase. We have 70.66 cases per 100,000. The change from the previous week is 42.41%. So I know I've said this before to you and people in the public. I've always worn a mask even though I'm fully vaccinated because of a family member who can't. So once the mask ban was lifted, the COVID is affecting, this new variant, the Delta variant, is affecting mostly unvaccinated individuals. However, there have been breakthrough cases, notably Senator Graham today vaccinated and has tested positive for COVID. So I would just like to bring that out as a PSA and just remind everybody, even if you are vaccinated, there can still be breakthroughs, unfortunately. Fortunately for you, if you had a vaccine, the case that you will get is not as severe as the case that you would get if you weren't vaccinated, according to the statistics. But Orange County, there is a recommendation. It is not an executive order at this point, but it is a strong recommendation by the CDC for everybody to, once again, wear masks indoors.
Thank you,
You're
Lonnie.
welcome.
Gary?
Yes, just a quick update. The water plant average for the use of July was 510,000 gallons. Bog Bend was at 87%. This time last year it was 78%. We did have quite a bit of rain, luckily. We did have some hot days. And then the water leak on West Street was repaired on the 1st of July. I'm sorry, the first service line in July 20th. And then Ryan Kresbach is back as the second operator for the water plant there. And everything else has been so far so good. Jack's doing a good job.
And how was your go-up?
Bail is good.
Good.
Bail is good. Should be 8 at the end of the month.
That's what's important. Jim?
Yeah, just a couple quick things. Just looking at the open meetings law, actually we get a copy of it in our handbook for elected folks. It does say any proposed resolution, law, rule, regulation, policy, or amendment that a public body is scheduled to discuss in an open meeting must be made available upon request to the public prior to or at the meeting to the extent that the public body determines it is practical. So I think what the village attorney was saying is that the law is the law and the policy would be created by the board. So if the board wanted, as we had said, we'll look into it, and if we want to create a policy that the board wants to vote on and accept. But be that as it may, I actually hate the time schedule that the dissolution puts the municipality on. It just seems so rapid to me, how fast we have to move, especially with the number of days, and where you have to be in so many days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 180 days. You have the vote, then within so many days after the vote, then you have to do this, and then after that, you have to be within, if the vote is in favor of dissolution, you have to close the door within so many days after that. I mean, the dissolution law that was written, it's funny, I had heard from an attorney friend of mine that the folks who formulated the law never served in local government. So they have no idea, you know, how any of this works. Now they're up in Albany, so they're much smarter than all of us, but that's fine. But, so I just wanted to make that comment about that. And I think if we need to look at a policy, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that either. The $125,000 that was voted upon at the last meeting, its sole purpose is not to cover what was stated by one of the other trustees. The money that we're paying for the study is going to come out of that money. The money, if the vote is in favor of dissolution, you're going to need money to come out of that 125. It's not, we're not going to like go get more money. The 125 was based upon the recommendation that the village attorney had spoken with a couple of municipalities, and they said, well, so far to date we spent X. The other municipality spent 119,000. So just trying to come up with a number to just so that the public can understand and have an idea of the dollar amount that we've got to put on. Now, if we get through the study and we get through communicating to the public what the results of the study information is, and we get through the vote, and the vote is say, let's just say for a second, I don't want anybody to pass out, that the vote gets voted down, that we keep the village of Highland Falls, then the money would stop. Whatever we spend to date would stop, the rest would go back into the general fund, and we move on with life, to some degree. If the vote goes in favor, then out of that 125, there's going to be some other expenditures. But I think it's fair to the public that we know that we at least have that money set aside right now to do that in favor, to get us to that process, and to make sure that we know what we're spending. So I understand, believe me, I understand the frustration, the scheduling. Every time I talk to another attorney or hear from, read on the whole stack of paper I have on dissolution, the timeline is very scary, just in the sense of just the timing. And, it takes long enough sometimes. Some of the people in public, we've been talking about cell towers for 3 years. It feels like a lifetime, or cell antennas. So I understand that, but sometimes some things need to be talked about a little more length of time. I understand that some people don't, and that's fine, I get it. The law is the law. So I would imagine that as we move through the process, there's probably going to be some other dates that maybe some, even residents don't like, in the time frame and how fast we have to move and stuff like that. So I understand the frustration, believe me. The last quick thing I'll say is that on the MOAs, well, you know what? Because of what Trustee Howard said at the beginning, I'm going to stop there. So thank you.
Thank you.
But I'm not going to stop there. It's misleading what was said about the MOAs. I'm going to say this publicly again, because I've done it already. I want to look at you, I want to look at you. Is there any other police officers here? I want to thank the PPA for negotiating with me in making what I consider a good deal. Definitely a good deal for the village, and I hope you all see it the same way. That's it.
The last thing I have is that tomorrow, for the public, is National Night Out. It starts at 5 o'clock. There's one in the village of Highland Falls, right at the Municipal Lot 2. Across the street, for those of people with late terms, across the street from Sacred Heart Church. Giveaways, educational programs, educational information, giveaways. Should be a nice night. The weather's supposed to be good, so please come down and enjoy.
On Trustee DeSalvo's there, yeah, if everybody can, please bring your family down, bring your kids down. We're giving away bikes, we're gonna have a DJ. Should be a good time for everybody, and good way to come down and meet the local police officers if you don't know some of them, and just say hi and stop by.
Thank you.
Don't we usually do this for the town police?
I think, well, I guess in the past we have, I'm not sure what happened.
But we've always hosted it.
Yeah, we've always
This is
hosted it,
probably
they
our,
joined us.
So
I want to
we
say off the top of my
invited
head, 3, 4.
this year, or we didn't invite them to join us?
I'm not sure, I wasn't in the planning phase of that. I think they are having one down at Brooks's Park, but I'm not sure, I wasn't in the planning phase.
It's
But
the first time I think they've ever done it. First time they've ever done it.
If I could just piggyback off the police, there's actually a community member, George, Detective Sergeant, 2nd grade, George Marino. He passed away, he had a 9/11 cancer mutation. His wife, Mrs. Marino, is very prevalent in our community. Anytime you call her for service, she's out there, even in her battle with her husband at Sloan Kettering. So the village will have a table for them for donations if you guys want to stop by. I mean, we do a lot of things for people that we know in our community. I know we don't really know them, but he is a decorated hero. 9/11, it's alive, it's living, and so close to our anniversary, he did pass away. So please stop by that table.
Yes.
Yeah, just clarification, and to answer the question, Town of Highlands Police Department is also having a national night out. It's at Brooks Park, 6 to 8 p.m. Everyone in the Town of Highlands obviously is encouraged and welcome to attend. And so good opportunity to come to the Highland Falls National Night Out and the Town of Highlands Police National Night Out.
Go to both. Pick up all those
Support the
goodies.
first responders.
Yes.
Kenta Guy, village resident. I've been doing a lot of research, Department of State, going through massive amounts of past dissolutions, watching presentations by the Burge Group, CGR, so on and so forth. And I would encourage people, there is one on the village of Pauling. I would encourage people to go and watch what LaBerge had to say. And then if you can, go and find one from CGR so you can see what the differences is. I personally was a little disappointed, and I will be at the next meeting and asking questions. But I think people need to stand up, voice their opinion, ask questions. As far as the timeline is concerned, I get it's tight. It is what it is. However, this is a discussion that has been going on for 30 years, long before I ever came here, and people have been complaining for years and years and years. And everyone always talks about it election time, and then it goes away. Well, this time it's not going away. It has to be dealt with. People who live here will make the decision. It will be what it will be.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Yes, Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to really go on from where Kat said, I'm sorry, Joe DeWitt, village resident. You know, it's been decades in the making. It's finally here. I know originally the board had hired, is it CRG or CGR? I'm sorry. CGR, and then you changed to LaBerge. I was kind of curious as to why, and as much as I don't advocate spending more money, would it make sense to maybe hire them both, since it's finally here? I know, I don't blame the luck, Joe, but, you know, it's here. Maybe we need to look at both sides. You know, LaBerge is they seem to lean towards non-dissolution, and maybe CRG does. Maybe do we find money to...
That is so, Joe, okay, you know what?
All right,
You know what?
I'll read that, Joe.
We're all gonna hear what Mr. Howard said tonight, and I'm gonna let you get away with some comments that are...
All right, no, I'm
Okay,
not pointing fingers or making any personal comments, but maybe we hire both.
You just did. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll look at hiring both.
All right, fine. Well then, and while this is all going down, regardless of what side you're looking at, any party that's for or against, ask questions why, ask for proof, just ask for depth of information from either side of the equation. Just don't take statements for granted. Everybody should have deeper answers to your questions, and I hope I can be part of that as well.
Joe, I appreciate you saying that. Don't take this as gospel, because that's the point you're making. Be careful what you read, what you believe, what you hear, what you believe. Because anything that's sent out anonymous, I've been doing this for a long time. It's not true if it's anonymous. I put my name on everything. Go ahead. Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Put my name on it then.
No, you put your name on it if it's yours.
I will next time.
I hope so.
I'm also going to talk about this flyer. I'm Harvey Green, I'm a resident here. I'd like to know who sent the mail. There's nothing to identify the sender on this.
Well, Joe just said he did. I don't know if he meant it or not.
I did. I have a number of questions.
I did.
Okay.
They're coming out now.
Okay, I have a
I'm
number
not
of questions.
ashamed of it.
No, and neither
How
am
is
I.
this funded? Did you pay for it
Yes,
personally?
we paid for it privately,
Okay.
our own money.
Okay. To me, having read this, the information is very misleading or patently false. Many employees are approaching retirement age, ... Well, who determines that these employees want to or can afford to retire? Many will be absorbed into the town staff. Has anybody ever heard of civil service laws? They go on a preferred eligible list for the village. The village doesn't exist, that list goes away. Now they have to apply to the town. If there's a list, and the list is out there, they have to wait to take the test before they can go on the list. So when the town has to hire more people, if they're not on that list, they're not getting the job. Do lists for this position already exist? They may well. If they do, current village employees, where do they stand in relation to them? Are the position titles the same? Here you may have a police officer, village, and there may be a police officer, town. I don't know, but if the titles aren't exact, there's no way, you have to get the state of New York to agree to take one and equate it to the other. Village debt of $8 million stays with the village, but taxes will still go down as operating costs go down. How much will town taxes rise upon absorption of village services, since town employees receive higher rate of pay than village employees do? What happens to village assets, property, and equipment? Will they be sold off or transferred to the town? What happens to the proceeds if they're sold? will the town absorb the debt, if the town absorbs the thing, will the town absorb the debt associated with the assets, property, and equipment, if it's transferred to them? Will the cost of water and sewer go up? What about the fire department in Highland Falls? There's a fire department, but the village owns all of the equipment, trucks, turnout gear, everything. What happens to the equipment? If you have to dissolve the village, and I'm saying you shouldn't, I'm just saying I've got questions. If you have to do a dissolution, and that equipment has to be sold, you've got a fire department, a firehouse, with people that are willing to respond, and haven't got a way to do it. They have no trucks, they have no equipment, they have nothing. My conclusion is without concrete financial information and civil service guidance from the state, how can anyone state with accuracy what the outcome would be? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Martha Allward, Village President. One question, you mentioned the sales tax money that you got. Obviously, you can't count on that because you don't know what it's going to be each quarter, right? I mean, it's obviously based on sale. What is done with that money? How do you account for it here? You don't know what's coming in. Is it just general funds?
Go ahead. It's not that way. Go ahead.
Just curious. The second thing I have to say is the whole question of dissolution, consolidation, whatever it ends up to be, and possible loss of jobs through attrition or whatever. I have to ask, I'll ask anybody in this village, have you ever used a self-checkout? Have you ordered from Amazon or eBay or gotten your groceries delivered? Every time you use a self-checkout, you put somebody out of work. So it's a bigger problem than just one. Attrition does happen, people do change jobs, so it's not that anybody's trying to do away with a job, but if you use those other services, we have done away with the job.
Yeah, I don't, that's, okay, you're right. Go ahead.
I believe it was maybe last meeting that was stated that like the village board or the town board or any municipal government will levy the entire budget upon the residents of which they serve. So our revenues come from a few pots, and one of the pots is taxation, and one of them is sales tax revenue. So you'll see it in our budget under revenues. You'll see, I think we usually budget like 1.2 million for sales tax revenue to offset the costs. And I would venture to guess that the Department of Finance is pretty dead on with its numbers.
Yeah, I just didn't know.
And the difference between a year ago, not to cut you off, the difference between a year ago is you didn't have Legoland up and running. So now you have it. And I don't know if anybody's been on 17 on the weekends. It's been a complete nightmare. I don't know how long that road's going to stay 2 lanes and 2 lanes. It cannot.
We can't do any of the bridges on weekends around here either.
Right, so as that revenue starts to generate, even though we went up year over year, almost 50 grand, I think you'll probably see a spike in that.
Yeah, I was just curious because it's not like it's so much each quarter, it's a different number.
It's a different number, but usually we don't just pull a number out of the sky.
Right.
We try to stay in line with what the county Department of Finance has, and they're usually dead on. They are usually pretty close, I want to say 95% accurate.
So last year hurt because of.
Last year hurt, which they told us was going to hurt.
Right.
Prepare for that. And it's just like the town puts it in their budget. I think theirs is maybe a lot less. It's maybe $500,000 or something like that in that neighborhood. I'm not 100% sure, but that'll be part of their revenue stream as well.
No, I don't feel so bad about paying.
Okay.
I just want to thank the board and Mayor for really moving forward with cell towers. It's something that we desperately need in this town. So thank you for that. Last comment.
I need to correct this. There's cell antennas, because people go crazy when they hear tower.
Right. But thank you for it, because I know people,
Cell antennas.
most people don't even have home phones anymore. Right. But anyway, and the other thing is, I know we're talking about this consolidation, all that, but we suddenly look at the school taxes. The school taxes are way higher than the town taxes.
Exactly.
I have the schools, Dr. Shiboy here, and his financial person, and they gave a presentation, and same people were in this audience, and no one had a question for the school.
And I voted no.
Now, I don't know what you did. Jimmy, your last question, buddy.
Mr. Mayor,
Make it short.
well, oh, that's tough for me, you know that, but I'll try to keep it as short as possible. So, about 2 administrations ago, there was talk and the study had started, and I asked to be on that board, I wasn't elected official at that time. And the only thing I really asked that administration at the time was, give us 2 things. Show us the town taking over everything or having a super village. And they actually agreed to that, and they were working on that. And then, as things happened, it turned into, well, we're only gonna do the police department. But they were still giving us 2 pieces of paper, whether the village was gonna take over the PD, or whether the town was gonna take over the PD. And they were working on that until it all fell apart with Brown, and as you well know. So, it would be nice to have 2 pieces of paper to show the residents how much it's gonna cost and what services we will
It's a
get.
service.
And
It's
as
a
long as
service.
they're both the same, it's a no-brainer that we would definitely go for the lower amount. But unfortunately, when things get shoved down your throat in such a manner where you're mandated by the state on a timeline, it's kind of tough to get things like that. But anyway.
We're trying to get the information from the town also.
Right, and that was, I was gonna piggyback on that. So has this board reached out, or has the town board reached out since the petition was given to the board? And has there been any discussions on the possibility of what will happen should it pass? Has the town reached out to this village board?
The town has not reached out to me. I have reached out to the town.
Okay, great. So, again, now even getting on that, 6 years ago, I asked at the town board meeting if we would have districts, because dissolving one was supposed to have unity. And I was informed that we will have districts. We're gonna have a lighting district, we're gonna have sidewalk districts, we're gonna have water districts. All of this you're gonna see on your, it won't be your village tax, it's gonna be your town tax, but village residents are gonna have different districts. So the least they could do is show us what district lines that it will encompass should this pass. So are we gonna have a business Main Street district? Are we going to have, there's no sidewalks in Ontario Park. They shouldn't be involved in the sidewalk district then, right? There's none in Satellite Grove. There's none up on West Street. All of these other entities shouldn't be involved if we're gonna have a sidewalk district. These are things that need to be asked.
They will.
And
They will.
it needs to be ironed out.
They will.
And then one last thing, Mr. Mayor, and I see Todd here. The last meeting, you appropriated some money for drainage. And I know in December, Christmas time, I showed pictures to the board about Satellite Grove, about 1.5 feet of water. Is that involved in this new thing? Fantastic, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll take a motion to adjourn. So, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right.